What is up, my little friends? I'm Haley, and I am the host of Ella Storytime, a little show on Facebook where I read stories to young kids. My mom came up with this idea because a lot of kids are trapped inside because of this recent coronavirus pandemic, and you guys are probably kind of really bored. So my mom thought it would be a great idea, again, all credit to her, no credit to me, for me to read out some stories to you guys. So, with the help of my friends here, I'm going to be reading some stories. These are my friends. Holly, but his nickname is The Floof. Nia, who's named after Neapolitan ice cream, vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate. Creepy, you guys might recognize him. Penguino right here, and my friend Hunter. Speaking of which, Hunter, which book are we reading today? Ooh, very nice choice. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, written by Judy Barrett and drawn by Ron Barrett. Oh, Holly, I see that you already have yourself set up with a little plate of meatballs. How awesome. I'll let you enjoy that little snack, and we will begin reading.
We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we each could eat. And Grandpa was doing the flipping. Here is a small picture of our family at the breakfast table. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed towards the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. Look at Henry! It's a pancake! Isn't that silly? After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. And here's a picture of breakfast continuing uneventfully. And now we go to night. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Across, I have to get my old voice on. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts, and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. Here we have a small picture of Chew and Swallow. In most ways, Chew and Swallow was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, that's a lot, and some assorted cats and dogs. Doesn't that sound a lot like your town? So what's so different about Chew and Swallow? There were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everyone ate everything that came from the sky. Here's a picture of an old grandpa that looks a lot like the other grandpa, looking out to see if there's any food from the sky. Whatever the weather served was what they ate. But it never rained rain. It never snowed snow. And it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. Here we see juice raining down, mashed potatoes and green peas, and some hamburgers. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. And here is that same grandpa looking at the weather. And the weather says, you can't see it, but the weather guy's saying cloudy with a chance of meatballs, which is what the book's called. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they ever got hungry between meals. Here's all the food raining down from the sky. We have a bunch of pancakes raining down onto a lady's car right here. Over here, we have a baseball game that was canceled because of all the pie raining down. Over here, we see a lady trying to catch a plate of, what is that? Chicken legs. Don't you love chicken legs? And then over here, we see, oh, look at that guy. He's sharing the orange juice in his umbrella with his little dog. That's so cute. Dinner one night consisted of a lamb. Oh, sorry, I skipped a page. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny side up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast. And most of the time, it rained milk afterwards. All the breakfast is coming down, and it's all over the trees. Would you want to eat food that was on the trees? Even some of the squirrels are having some for breakfast. For lunch one day, frankfurters, those are hot dogs, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles per hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. And here we have, right here, Frank's Roofless Restaurant. And there is a lot of hot dogs raining down. This guy over here, he's even going on a lady's table just to catch one. Would you do that? He's so silly. This book's very silly. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by a slow clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. It's all over the forest, or whatever that is. And instead of the sun, it's a jello. Isn't that funny? The sanitation department, which is pretty much like the garbage guys that come around and take your garbage cans. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather odd job for a sanitation department. It had to get rid of the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed them to the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the dirt would be richer for the people's flower gardens. And here we see the garbage guys doing their job. And there are some dogs waiting right over here and a cat so that they can get their meal. Life for the townspeople was delicious, until the weather took a turn for the worst. Here is the weather taking a turn for the worst. Spaghetti ties up town. There's a whole newspaper about it. That's how you know it's serious. One day, there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day, there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day, there were Brussels sprouts with peanut butter and mayonnaise. Another day, there was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. That's bad. That's really bad. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. Those are like the portions are little, cut this out. The people were getting scared. Dangerous storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, There was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could into their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. Look at how scary that looks. How would you feel if one day there just was a bunch of bread in the ocean and you had to stay indoors? There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. And here's the big pancake that closed the school. Much like the quarantine right now. But that's not good. Lunch one day brought in 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomachache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind, accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. And here's the tornado. This is awful. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. Could they have really done anything else? It's this bad. The guy has a noodle on his head. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread in their backyards, sandwich style with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new land. Would you like to go? How would you like to go on a big old trip with riding on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and all the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Most things meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except for rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the last part of Grandpa's story. I remember his kiss goodnight. The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought that we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. The end.
What a wonderful story, am I right? Now I have a little challenge for all my wonderful friends behind the screen. Here's my challenge. In this story, the people of Chew and Swallow had food raining down from the sky every day. What would it be like if your favorite food, or any food, was raining down from the sky? Draw a picture, and then make sure to have your parents post it online with the hashtag Ella Storytime. I hope you all had as great of a time reading this story as I did, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye!